Hey there, and welcome to the userexperience.org podcast, where I chat with the people creating the products that shape the world. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
You're never going to have a piece of software manage a human being. Human being is never going to listen to a piece of software to tell them what to do. It's just not going to happen. Okay.
I'm going to write these predictions down, and then we'll check in with each other in
Let's,
5 years.
I mean, this is a great debate. You tell me that if your software tool is telling you what to do, you're like, okay, I'm going to listen to the software.
So as an Uber, like imagine you're an Uber driver. It's literally telling you what to do, who to go to, where to pick up, who to pick up. So I think there's already a significant portion of our economy of people that are actually just following what the algorithm tells them to do. Also, maybe people. Right.
So wait a second. Come on. You can't use AI for that. GPS runs without AI on that. I mean,
no. But I'm saying. So okay, one second.
I'm using the tool to solve a problem. I'm not. That's not me telling you what to do.
Right, but your point was that people won't listen to an algorithm telling them what to do, but Uber drivers themselves are being told by the algorithm what to do, right? Or is that?
Yeah, if you want to go get some money. I mean, I'm talking about in an office environment. You think we're going to sit down? Here's the thing. Honestly, if we get to that point, then there'll be no humans in the conversation. If the computer is smart enough to tell people what to do, then the computer is smart enough to do it. Don't need to give this to somebody else to do it. I'll just do it myself.
Yeah.
Right. And then humans will be completely stripped out of the equation.
So that's a view some people have. And I kind of have that view that in a couple of years, like a significant portion of people might be jobless. But at least in my experience.
And you're okay with that. You're okay with that.
So I'm not okay with that.
Okay. All right. Well, I just want to make sure we're clear.
Yeah.
See, this gets into an existential thing because at the end of the day, like a human without purpose, okay, is a scary person. Okay. Yeah. The reality is that every stupid thing that I have done in my entire life is because I was bored. Okay. And I did stuff that I really should not have done when I was younger. Okay. Yeah. And that's what now you're going to have all generations of people with tremendous amounts of time on their hands, right? What's the old saying? It's with the idle hands are the work of the devil, right? The reality is that you give people too much freedom and without purpose, I think a lot of people are going to fritz out, right? You can have a lot of problems mentally where people do not have any goals or drive to do something. And I think what's going to end up happening is that eventually it's going to be legislated, right? I mean, it's going to have to, the world will come together and they'll be like, look, we just can't have 50, 60, 70% of the population unemployed, right? But here's the thing. I've seen a famous economist said that 2050, that there will be 60% unemployment. And as a result of the 60% unemployment, the companies that are using AI and robots will actually become incredibly wealthy. So the only thing that the government can do is tax these companies heavily. So they bring the money in to pay you to sit on your butt. Okay. And now we get to communism. Because we spread the peanut butter evenly across the cracker. Everybody gets the same amount. Everybody has access to the same food. Everybody has access to the same things. And we spread everything evenly across the cracker with no ability to grow an economy as a result of it.
So then you still have a lack of purpose in that situation.
Exactly. So, I mean, this is why I feel like the AI they're incredible tools for creating efficiency. And I think that's where it should end. Right? Because this is where humans, just because we can, doesn't mean we should. And this is a person that's worked for 4 AI companies and started one. And I'm telling you right now that the end result, if this really, and the reason why I've done AI companies, like this stuff barely works. It gives me some levels of efficiency, but this isn't replacing somebody. It's making somebody more productive. Okay. But if you're going to start replacing people, and these people are all on the breadline, and, look, we saw this in France, when people are poor and they don't have it, guess what they do? They revolt. Okay. And they'll start smashing these machines. And these machines will, hopefully they're programming not to fight back. Otherwise,
Yeah.
we're in a Terminator movie. Um, did you see the Terminator? Oh, you should watch it. Go watch it. It's from the
Okay.
80s. They literally
Okay.
predicted all this stuff. It's quite impressive. So
Yeah.
James Cameron is a genius.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'm definitely of the opinion that we're probably heading that way. And you mentioned legislative and stuff. I don't really have faith in that, especially looking at like who's running the show. If they can maintain power and keep the money and stuff, I'm not sure if how they're gonna make sure that we're like well kept or like unless of course, yeah, I don't know. It's getting a little philosophical.
Oh, it is. It is. But this
Um,
is where you wanted to go.
yeah, so I'm actually going to the Y Combinator on June 16th and 17th,
Mhm.
and there's going to be like Sam Altman and a bunch of other CEOs of the big companies, and I'm planning on asking them a couple of questions. Um, do you have any questions that you would want me to ask them on your behalf?
Yeah. Just ask that one question. Say, Sam, because he actually was up in front of the Senate, and they asked him these questions, and he said that this could become dangerous.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, and I think the question to ask Sam is, well, at least what I would ask Sam, and you ask him whatever you want. You
Hmm.
can make him feel really good about himself. But I would ask the one question is that, Sam, where does this end up? What happens to people in this scenario?
Yeah.
Where do you see that impact? Because he's already said it, but I think it's important because I think Sam a few years ago that did it to Sam now, he's a different guy. I'm watching the evolution of him where, he's starting to breathe his own exhaust now. And so this is what happens with all founders that have a tremendous amount of success.
Hmm.
They get myopic in their own world and their own business. And how do I keep making it better? He's got competition out there, with DeepSeek and all these other ones. He's got to compete. So he's getting laser focused on how do I make this the best possible product. And then after a while, he's taken the shackles off of keeping this thing safe, right? Where he's just like, I got to win. And this is the way all businesses are, right? You got to win. What I talked about is business is like war. We have
Yeah.
competition, we've got to win. And so he will take the handcuffs off. He will invest in people's political campaigns in order to get favor so that regulation doesn't get put on his company where these Chinese companies have no regulation and they can do whatever the heck they want, right?
Hmm.
So that would be the big question I would ask him was where does it end? And
Yeah.
I'm guilty of being a person that's worked at companies that have contributed to this, but I will say that he has done it better than anyone else. So, and that's the reality of it. And his stuff
Yeah.
actually works.
Yeah. So that's also something that I've been not, I don't know if struggling is the right word, but just kind of thinking about where I find AI really cool and I really want to advance AI and make sure it helps. But I also see all the negative parts, either in terms of AI safety, like the Terminator, or just maybe getting like people might be losing their jobs. And I'm wondering, and you might not have an answer to this, but like, how should I frame it in my head to where I can pursue that while also, you know, not feeling bad about myself?
Well, don't feel bad about yourself. I mean, honestly, we all have a job to do in this world, and I think if you just focus on building things the right way for the right purposes, because there's lots of uses for AI that are incredibly helpful to man, right? It's
Hmm.
just the question is when we get to that point where we're replacing man, you know, what's man's role? What
Yeah.
do we do with our time? My kids used to watch this movie Wally. I don't know if you saw it growing up.
Yeah.
And it's basically we pollute the crap out of the world, and we go off on a spaceship, and we all become fat and watch TV all day and suck back, milkshakes, and I is that where we end up? Is that good? I don't know. I don't know. It
Yeah.
just these are the things that your generation is going to have to figure out. My
Hmm.
generation, we're coming to the end here. The last guys, in our late 40s and 50s. We've got a few years. We're contributing to this. Trust me. We understand what we've done.
Hmm.
And so, but then the question is, what is your generation going to do with it? Because your generation will be the generation that feels the full effect of it. Because there's no question in 10 years, you're going to see enormous strides made in it. I think really the big thing that's going to hold back AI though is actually energy.
Hmm.
The amount of electricity that needs to be produced, like they're saying right now that none of the grids can hold the electricity needed in order to run the AI.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's also why they're buying up, nuclear power plants and restarting them and stuff.
That's exactly it, because they literally are not going to be able to produce the energy.
No.
So it's like, and the grid can't hold it. The grid, they have to redo the whole grid now. Like my brother works in the energy field, and he said it literally by 2029, the grid will collapse if it isn't
Hmm.
revamped now. Nobody's talking about it. Like where the infrastructure bill that got passed, where was the money for that?
No.
Like electricity is kind of important to us. I don't know, call me crazy. It's just like it feels like everything that I do involves electricity.
Yeah.
No one's talking about it.
I heard that Sam went to Saudi Arabia or somewhere in that area, and they're planning on just creating an insanely large solar farm to train their models.
Yep.
Um, I mean, maybe they'll end up like making a satellite around the sun and engulfing the sun.
Who knows? Who
But yeah.
knows? I mean, put it this way: I believe in man's ability to innovate. Right? Obviously, I've spent a number of years in tech, watching some great developments. Right? And so, I believe that man can accomplish just about anything if they put their mind to it. But
Hmm.
the question is how far do we want to go? Like, I mean, one of the things that Elon Musk talks about is like, well, look, after we burn out this planet, let's go terraform Mars and go live on Mars. And it's like, how about we terraform our own planet if we burnt out this planet? How about if we fix this one, right? So we don't have to get on a spaceship and fly for 6 months to a red planet that barely has enough anything for us to survive, right? Let's just fix this one.
Yeah.
So, anyways, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Good philosophical discussion today.
Yeah. So I see that it's 12 o'clock. Is this a hard stop, or do you have like a couple, like 10 more minutes?
Yeah, I got a few more minutes if you want it.
Okay. So yeah, I think it's then a good moment to wrap up that philosophical discussion. I did have a couple, like, I guess, lower stakes questions regarding marketing and maybe product design that I would like to ask you if
Go
possible.
for it.
Um, so right now in my mind, there's like a ball where it's like there's like entrepreneurship, marketing, and like user experience and product design. And I just want to kind of get your vision on how you see those things like interacting with each other.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's interesting because I think nowadays, do you have the ice cream man?
Yeah, so there's a really old clock, and
Oh, it
let me
brings
just
me
mute
back. It brings
myself.
me back to the ice cream man and us running down the street with our $2 to try to get
Yeah.
some hoodsies. All right. But yeah, I mean, look, the intersection around user experience, and I think this is it's interesting because I won't say which companies, but I've worked for a number of companies that don't spend a lot of time talking to the users to do
Hmm.
user experience. They look at best practices that other technology companies are using out there. And I think this is where, I think over time, um, where marketing has been further separated from the product. When I came out of college in 1992, marketing kind of shaped all products. Why? Because
Hmm.
they were talking to customers all the time. They were running focus groups. They were doing surveys. They were pulling that data back into the organization, sharing it with R&D and engineering, and they would build based on what they learned talking to customers, right? And I think nowadays, what you tend to find is that that's been separated, and I think a lot of the R&D and engineering teams are under a lot of pressure to produce by certain dates, and so they cut out the testing part to the level of detail that it needs to be at. And they don't talk to customers because they don't go on sales calls. They're not building materials for customers, not doing outside marketing, messaging, and those types of things. And so as a result, it just creates sometimes a disconnect between what you're building in the product and what the market actually wants. And we get into this thing, well, we built it and it's innovative. And it's like, well, great. You just innovated something. But the question is, who wants it? Who's going to use
Yeah.
it? Like one of the things that I found, like, and I'm just using software because obviously I know it so well, is like you keep adding more and more features to your product. Question is, do you use them? I mean, you have an iPhone and all of these new features have come out each year in the OS. Do you use any of them? Maybe a
Hmm.
couple of them, maybe use an emoji or something like that. But the reality is that we keep adding more and more features because we feel like we need to stay competitive, and people don't use them. Like even with something as archaic, right, as Microsoft Word or Microsoft PowerPoint, these products have been around forever, right? We date these back to the 90s.
Hmm.
The reality is they keep adding more and more features, and the people use the same 30% of the functionality that they used back in the 90s. So we need to ask ourselves, just because we keep building these features doesn't mean that it's going to make our product more competitive. A lot of times in technology and things that we build and anything, if it just does what the stated purpose of it is, and it does it really well and gives you the value, the benefits of it, and it's differentiated, that's enough, right? And I think that's the key thing, is figuring out what are the benefits for your buyer and how is it different than the competition. If you know those two elements of it, you're going to be fine. But if the R&D
Yeah.
team doesn't doesn't understand why they're building, what the value proposition, don't understand what the customers are want and how they're using it, then I think you're going to find that there's a disconnect with what gets built and what truly makes you successful and competitive.
Yeah. So just last question about this before we wrap up. So you mentioned that nowadays marketing and maybe like the engineering department are kind of separated in the idea also that the engineering department doesn't talk to users as much as they should. What do you think? Like, why is that happening in like organizationally, and how do you get an organization to actually invest the time and resources to start talking to users?
Well, it's oh wow, this is a long conversation, but I'll try to give you the abbreviated version on it. So way back in the old days, when marketing had all of that data, working with the customers and the consumers, whatever it was,
Hmm.
that was really the only place you could get it, right? So marketing funneled it all in. And then what ended up happening with marketing is one of the key problems with marketing is they did all the pricing, the packaging, the product direction. They did all of the communication of the messaging, and they did all of these strategic elements as part of that job.
Hmm.
But what happened was you couldn't measure the success of it. Enter the internet and being able to track things. So for the first time, marketing now could show what they were doing numerically. They could track the ROI, and they leaned into the areas where they could really track it, which is the acquisition piece. So they started forgetting about doing and putting the time and energy into
Hmm.
things like pricing and packaging and product, right? There are 4 P's to marketing. We just abandoned 3 of them, right? We focused on promotion and that's it. So what happened is this started falling on the floor, right? And the development organizations got further and further away from who the audience was. And so what happened was a lot of companies came in and built a special product team, and that had like product management, maybe product marketing in it. And their job was to pull in external information, give that back to the R&D or the engineering team to build those things. And so marketing got, because they leaned into the numbers and being able to prove the ROI and move more towards the promotion piece, they actually abandoned the other key elements of marketing that would have fed the organization. So that gap, right, was filled by this other team.
Yeah.
And so the reason why that doesn't work particularly well is because marketing is still talking to the customer all the time. And this product team probably is not. They're doing research to find things that are going on in the marketplace. They may have a couple of interviews here and there with customers, but you're not getting that full pullback to the engineering team. They're just, I haven't seen it. Maybe there are companies that do a great job, and I'm sure there are there are some out there that do a lot of testing with consumers and other things along those lines. But
Hmm.
I know that for a lot of companies, they're just moving at a lightning fast pace, and they don't need to get things out. People aren't even patenting things anymore because they're like, if I got to go through the patent process, by the time the patent gets issued, we're already going to be on to the next thing anyway. So just get the thing out there as fast as we possibly can. Don't worry about the stinking patent. And
Yeah.
2 years from now, when the patent would actually come out, we'll innovate again and change the game. So Yeah, it's a different dynamic on this, and this is why marketing is kind of lost its mojo with kind of controlling that whole piece, and at the center of it is the customer and what the customer needs are, and then feeding all those things out into the marketplace. Marketers need to be looking at the market and bringing that information back to the company. That's why the word market is in marketing, right? And they don't do that as much anymore.
Yeah.
So it's disappointing. So that's what I try to educate people on. Whether I'm doing a workshop or whether I'm teaching class, it's like marketing is actually this job, guys. And a lot of people don't know that. They think that marketers, all they do is sit around and create ads all day. So if you're
Yeah.
doing that, then you're not doing your job.
So speaking of that, for the audience listening, anyone interested in marketing and learning about that, what's the best way for them to start learning? Like how to get in touch with you or how to find out what you're writing about or teaching about? What would you
Oh,
recommend?
that's a good question. I mean, I look, if you want to go get the book, it's up on Amazon, the nextcmo.com. You can
Hmm.
get it there for free. You can join the Next CMO community. It's a free community. That's at the nextcmo.com. You can register for it. And there's tons and tons of information up there, templates, best practices, articles to help you get up to speed. All this stuff is free for you. So that's just from my end. Or you can come take my class. You go to either Babson or UMass Boston. I'm happy to teach you. So,
Very
but
nice. Yeah.
I'm sure there are other places you can get really great information. Lots getting written today. I would just make sure that you have marketing in your feed on LinkedIn. There's so much that's popping up, and there's a lot on AI now. And
Hmm.
almost all of the marketing tools that we've historically used are now embedding AI into the tools. So things like HubSpot and Salesforce and all those systems now are starting to add AI to it. So understand how the AI works for those tools, and you'll find yourself becoming more and more efficient. And the person that knows how to use AI probably will stay employed. Those people that know how to do the prompts and other things along those lines, they'll have a lot of employment. Because here's the reality is I talk to a lot of CMOs and go to CMO roundtables, and they're all like, I don't know what to do with AI. I don't know. I don't have an AI strategy. I don't have people on my team that really well versed in AI. It's like,
Hmm.
so if you are, then the CMO is going to hire you and say, okay, let's build a strategy on here on how to approach this, and then we'll figure out what those tactics are that we can start to implement those systems to improve our output.
Great. All right. Well, thanks for being on, Scott. Is there anything else you'd like to share or mention before we wrap it up?
Sure. Where do I start? No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding with you. Yeah, now I could go on and on, but we do need to end at some point because I need to have lunch.
Yeah, sounds good. Um, One question I like to ask at the end, or at least this is a question I'm trying to start to ask nowadays, is there anyone that you think would be a good guest for me to interview next?
There's
Like in
so
terms of
many.
AI or product design?
Well, I mean, ask when you get up there on ask Sam.
Yeah,
I'm Sam Altman
that's
and
my
say, hey,
plan.
I've got a podcast. Can I get you on it? I tell you that'll boost your ratings, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
honestly, here's the thing that everything is a numbers game, right? We for our podcast, the next CMO, David Meerman Scott wrote a book called The New Rules of Marketing and PR. And it was
Hmm.
incredibly successful, probably one of the most successful marketing books of all time. And we said, let's reach out to, we have our 100th episode. Let's reach out to him and see if he'll do it for free. And we thought there was no chance that he would do it for free. We had reached out to Seth Godin. He wanted like $30,000 to be on our podcast, but he did. He did it for free.
Wow.
So keep asking people that you think could contribute the right types of content. It's all a numbers game. You'll get somebody that will have some free time and will join your podcast, and that'll help you go right up the line. But just make a list. Make a
Yeah,
list of people that you would love to talk to, and then just reach out to them. Somebody will crack. I mean, look, you got me on the phone.
correct.
I don't even know you, right? And
Yeah,
so, it's you can get people just by being really nice to them. Make sure that you pump up their ego, and then you're like, Oliver's a nice guy. Let me get on the call here with him. So,
yeah. Nice. I'll let you know what Sam says.
Okay.
I'll tell him Scott said hi.
Yeah, Scott. Yeah, he doesn't know who I am. Yeah, I only knew Steve, like, but
Yeah,
I did. But did I really know him? No. He still never asked me what my name was. So
yeah.
I'm sure he won't even remember that he did
Well, I
that.
guess you met him in his purest form then.
Yeah, I mean, look. I this is hopefully not a Steve Jobs batching. I obviously respect what he was able to build. It's incredibly powerful. I mean, look, it's an empire right now.
Hmm.
But sometimes you got to break a little glass, in order to get there, and that's what he did. So there are other ways to do it, though. I mean, look at Warren Buffett. They say Warren Buffett's a really nice guy,
Yeah.
and he's one of the richest men in the world. They say he's really good to the people that work for him. So there's more than one way. I think you got to be authentic. I think people knew that Steve was that way, the people that worked for him, and they accepted it. They wanted to work with greatness, and they accepted that he was temperamental. And people wanted to work with greatness with Warren Buffett, and he just was different, right? And so there's no one way to approach it. Like, I mean, Steve, I met Bill Gates a long time ago, and he seems like a nice guy. Like he treats you like a nice guy, but he's
What was that like? What? How did that happen?
yeah. I mean, no, we were at a show. There was a big event a long time ago called Comdex
Okay.
out there, and we ended up. He used to just walk the floor of Comdex, and he would walk around to see companies and their different technologies, and he would things that he really liked, he thought were interesting that could plug into Microsoft. He
Hmm.
would spend time talking to the people in these booths, and they'd be like, "Oh my God, it's Bill Gates," and he'd be like, "Show me what you got," and he would take a look at it. And I watched this phenomenon happen at a trade show that I was at. I was actually in the booth right next door. He didn't want our technology, but the people that were in the Comdex booth next to it, he loved it, and he got actually went into their booth and spent 2 hours with them. He called over his product manager, and they watched the product, and he left them saying, "Look, I love what you guys built, and maybe there's something that we can do together in the future." Then he turned around, and he grabbed his marketing person, put together a press release, called a press meeting, and said he was going to come out with the same damn product in 6 months. Crushed the company. Their valuation went down, and he bought them for pennies on the dollar and brought them into Microsoft. He was totally courteous and gracious, and like he was not yelling and screaming. He was not cutting like Steve Jobs, but
He
you
was
know
calculated.
he was a calculated businessman, and he just went about doing his thing. And so they're different. Everybody's a little different, and there's no one
Yeah.
way to do it. You have to be true to yourself. You have to be authentic, and you have to be consistent. Because I think that's what really messes up people is like, God, I really thought Warren was a good guy. Now he's screaming at me. This is no fun, right? I think
You gotta have a brand strategy for yourself.
exactly, and then people know what to expect from you, and I think that's really important. So,
Yeah.
what's your brand strategy? Have you figured it
Yeah.
out?
So that's what I was thinking about because that's also what you asked me all the way at the beginning. For like that you listen to some of my podcasts and you want to kind of fit in, and that's kind of also now with this conversation, I've kind of felt inside of me like oh, this is the userexperience.org podcast, so I have to you know fit within the lines of what that means, and then but then like the conversation kind of goes where it wants to go, and I'm thinking how do I want to take this project like moving forward. Yeah, so I don't know if you have any tips for how I can kind of think about that, and should I just let it be loose, or should I try to think about a specific niche that I want to be in, say like UX and AI, or yeah, how would you approach it, or how have you approached it?
What do you enjoy doing?
I enjoy asking people questions that I find interesting, and talking to interesting people.
Then maybe you should build an amazing podcast and make money that way. Okay, so I mean, the reality is this: is that just because you're majoring in AI, you can talk about AI instead of doing it, right?
Hmm.
There are plenty of people out there that want to listen and get information. Right now, AI is so stinking hot. If you get just people talking about AI and how it fits into user experience and other things along those lines, I'm sure you'd have a lot of people that'd be interested in your podcast, and you can build it up that way. But it's entirely up to you. It's what do you enjoy doing? And I
Yeah.
think the key thing for me is like, when I went to business school, I kind of knew I wanted to do marketing. But then somebody told me that you can make way more money when you get out of college doing accounting like your mother, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, I think maybe I want to do accounting. And then I took an accounting class and I said, I think I don't want to do accounting, right?
Yeah.
I'm going back to marketing. So sometimes you try some things, and I ran sales 4 times. I didn't love it, right? It's it's a tough beast. I've ran partnerships, I've run product management before, and so you test those things out and see what you like to do and figure it out. But here's the good news. I think you're in your 20s, and so this is the perfect time to figure out what you want to do and to build that foundation. If you build the foundation in your 20s, your 30s, 40s, and 50s will get very easy. If you approach 30 and you still don't know what you want to do, that's when it's going to get tough for you. Okay, so make all your mistakes now. I made plenty of mistakes in my 20s. I tested out different things that I wanted to do in my 20s. I could explore the space a little bit, and then I figured out, okay, this is my path, right? And then dedicate yourself to that path. Because if you get married and you have kids, that's going to add a different level of burden onto it. And what will get you through those periods of time of fatigue and other things along those lines is your experience, which is why you got to build the foundation and understand these things in your 20s. So in your 30s, all you're doing is sharpening the saw instead of building the saw from scratch. Okay? That's my one piece of advice on it.
Yeah.
You're like, God damn, that's not what I wanted to hear.
And we can take over Canada with the saw.
Leave those poor Canadians alone.
Yeah. We'll see what happens.
I don't think anybody in the United States wants Canada.
Well, I know at least maybe one person that does.
Well, I know one, but I don't think anybody else does. They're like, well, what's up there? Like, Molson beer and some moose.
I don't know.
A lot of ice.
We'll have to see.
Hockey. They got good hockey. So.
Yep.
All right. Very good. Well, hopefully I didn't make too many enemies on this. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no worries. We'll see what the comments say. But yeah, thanks a lot, Scott. Yeah, and I'll keep you updated on what I do.
Okay,
and,
awesome. Please do.
Yeah. All right. Thanks again.
All
and say hi to Avi for me.
I absolutely will. Have a good one. Nice meeting you.
Right. You too. Enjoy your lunch. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Well, that wraps up this episode. I hope you liked it. If you did, please leave a review and share the podcast. I'd love to hear what you thought. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest, send an email to podcast@userexperience.org. And for more resources, make sure to check out userexperience.org.